Neil Brown just has that it factor, I believe.
He's bought into the program.
Everybody in the Big 12 is going to know his name, and all the quarterbacks are going to feel his pain.
That underdog mentality's always been big for West Virginia.
We're just heartbroken that we were not good at our jobs.
He is the modern-day Don Nehlen.
Trust the climb.
And now it's time for the Country Roads webcast.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into the Oklahoma preview edition of the Country Roads webcast. As always, I'm your host, Jordan Cruz, joined by my co-host, Steven.
What's up, everybody?
And our other co-host, Bradley.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. So Oklahoma week, six-time defending Big 12 champion Oklahoma, number 3 or number 4, depending on what poll you're looking at. West Virginia will be playing them 7:30 in Norman on ABC primetime. But before we get into that, let's start this off the way we always like to on these previews with our final thoughts on the Virginia Tech win. Anything, in the past few days that you've came across that you wanted to bring up, or just any final thoughts on the big win, big rivalry win over the Hokies to bring the Black Diamond Trophy back home? What do you got, Bradley?
Yeah, going through and watching. If you guys haven't watched, I'm sure you two guys have, but if any of our fans haven't watched it, go through and find it's like a Virginia Tech. It's not necessarily a highlight. It's like 6 minutes 57 seconds long on WVU Football, I think, or WVU Sports maybe, and it's really strong. Because when I was talking about how I really wanted to see our players and team get into this rivalry, it's good to hear them get excited about it after the game. So I think that this is definitely going to be Neil Brown talked about it being a moment that our team needs to find these moments that we can build upon, and that fourth goal and 4th and 4, 4th and goal, but 4 yards left to go, that's a big moment for our program. And if they really grab that and take a hold of it, it could be a really, really sound building block for our team for the rest of the season after such a shaky start.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly the same thing that I was going to say. I think that, like I said in the preview game, that this was one of the most pivotal games, on West Virginia's schedule, if not the most pivotal game, because you have a chance of going 1-4, 2-2, or maybe even 3-1. God forbid, West Virginia comes out there and shows up in Norman. But I think West Virginia really proved themselves on how they bounced back. I know they won the game against LIU, but I think everybody realized, in the fan base and on the team, that week 3 really was the bounce back week from week 1. And I think the West Virginia came out and they showed, a lot of poise and a lot of emotion in the game, and they came out ready to play. And I think that's going to be really important for our team, like you said, Bradley, in a building moment moving forward, and especially in a game you got coming up this weekend in Norman.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything both of you guys said. The video Bradley just mentioned, I definitely finally got to watch that last night before I went to bed. One of the last things I watched, and yeah, that's really amazing. Check that out if you haven't. They got it on Facebook, on the YouTube, wherever. It's about almost 7 minutes, I think. Virginia Tech recap, and it's good stuff. Neil Brown makes you want to run through a wall with some of the stuff that he said there. And I think as for my final thoughts for Virginia Tech, that's kind of what I go back to is signature win for Neil Brown. We had said biggest game of the Neil Brown era, and he passed the test and won that, and did something that rest in peace Bill Stewart hadn't done, that Dana Holgorsen never did, and that's win a non-conference game against a ranked opponent. That was West Virginia's first win over a ranked non-conference opponent since 2004 against Maryland. So that's something not to shake your head at, and a big thing for Neil Brown, to get that win and get the Black Diamond Trophy back home. And whatever bad taste, you have left in your mouth from the way Virginia Tech came back. At the end of the day, Neil Brown's job is to win football games, and he ended up winning the football game. So shout out to him. And I think trust the climb moving forward, because like you guys said, that could be a big turning point for this program. I've likened it to the 2002 game for Rich Rodriguez and how that was kind of a turning point for his program. And we could possibly see the same thing for Neil, but that starts right here with a tough test. West Virginia hasn't won back-to-back games over top 15 ranked teams since 1993. So this would be absolutely huge if West Virginia could find a way to beat, a top 5 ranked Oklahoma team that's looked, beatable this season at times, but, it's still Oklahoma, still playing a primetime game in Norman where they're very hard to beat. But that being said, let's get into it. Opening thoughts on Oklahoma. What do you got, Steven?
I'm really excited for this game this weekend. I think I'm one of the only Mountaineer fans in the fan base that's actually optimistic about how this game will turn out. But I think this game will be different than any of the ones in recent memory while West Virginia's been in the Big 12 at least. And the fact that this is probably going to be a defensive battle more so than an offensive battle, I believe, because West Virginia's defense obviously is playing at a high level right now. That's who West Virginia's using to pretty much carry the football team in each of their games so far. Uh, and likewise with OU, you see the game-winning interception by DJ Graham, hell of a play. But
Oh, amazing.
I just don't think that Oklahoma's offense is got the firepower that everybody builds them up to be. I haven't seen that much that impresses me out of Spencer Rattler compared to what he was hyped up to be coming out of high school. I had a lot of high expectations for him, and he's honestly playing more like an average quarterback than a superstar that Oklahoma's quarterbacks are used to being, I guess I should say. So that gives me a little bit of optimism moving into this weekend, but I do think it's going to be more of a defensive battle than an offensive battle because, I mean, I never thought we would say this while being in the Big 12, but I really do think that the Big 12 defenses have shown up a lot more than the Big 12 offenses this year. It seems so far so far through the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think the defensive have finally caught up, and you've started to see some really great defensive play the last few years. Iowa State was doing it. TCU's had good defenses, and West Virginia these past 2 years is legit. And I think Oklahoma, like you said, this is their best defense they've had in quite some time. They got a lot of stars. I know you mentioned the guy that had that hell of a grab on that one-handed interception. So some stars in the secondary, some guys that can make plays, and then still got Nick Bonita coming off the edge. That's a scary sight. So I think this Oklahoma team is, still finding their way, and we've seen that in the past years where they've started off kind of slow and struggled. And what I'm worried about is typical West Virginia bad luck. They finally come out and find their groove against us, and in a game where we're like, oh, they actually look beatable, then they come out and look like world beaters against us. So that's kind of my opening thoughts. And what I'm most worried about is, Oklahoma hasn't really looked like Oklahoma yet this year, but usually at some point they do, and I'm really worried that that's going to be this weekend. But Bradley, what about you? Your opening thoughts against Oklahoma?
I think that the game this weekend is going to be a statement game for either team. I think that, like you guys have talked, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse too much, but they're definitely a more beatable Oklahoma team than what we've seen the past couple of years. They're not up to that, Boomer Sooner standard that we're used to. But I think that coming into it, I think that I agree with Steven. I think it's going to be a defensive game, and I think it's going to be pretty back and forth on the defenses. Both of them have really shown up. And I think it's really going to come down to whether or not we grab that. I said all year that I feel like we've been lacking a spark. Maybe we got a little bit of a spark winning that last game, getting the trophy and bringing it home. If we could run with that spark, we could have really good things for WVU. But I said it in our Virginia Tech reaction. I was like, I don't want Oklahoma to be the team, that gets it rolling. I don't want it this weekend to be the weekend that Oklahoma gets it rolling. And I could definitely glad we're getting them earlier on in the season where they're still seeming to be kind of getting things together as opposed to getting them in this later in the season when they're definitely full steam when they found out exactly how their offense is going to be. But I definitely have high hopes for this game, and I would just want to see us compete, whether we come away with a win or not. I need to see us keep that momentum that we got from last weekend and keep it rolling into this weekend, whether we win or lose.
Yeah, since you touched on that, that's the thing that I do fear is that West Virginia will be too high up on themselves going into this weekend after the game last weekend, because that's what you generally see is you'll see either a team that's building on that momentum from a high emotion win, or that high emotion win has exhausted them for the next week. So it'll be interesting to see what West Virginia comes out and plays like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you
Mhm.
have your defense that has like massive, stops and the red zone and stuff like that. That's tiresome on the defense. I mean, getting out there and really throwing yourselves at it. I mean, I think they really gave it their all. So, I mean,
Oh
is
yeah.
our defense going to have a down weekend? Because I mean, it takes a lot to recover from that stuff. And I mean, you're turning around and coming up against probably the best wide receiver core, some of the just probably around the overall most talented team that we're going to go up against this year. And if you're not bringing the exact same power and energy that you had last game because you were forced to expend a lot of energy to like keep
Hmm.
that game close and keep that win in check. Is it going to come in? Is that going to help lead to that that downward swing, kind of like what you were talking about?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
they
for
did have a
me,
lot
it's
of
going.
goal line stands.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. That the number one red
That
zone
stuff's
D in the
tough. That stuff
nation right
wears you
now.
out.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's the thing for me. I think I'm looking at the defense in this game. This defense has shown that they're, maybe like I said, not to the level rankings wise. I think I said this on the reaction show of last year's defense, but this defense has a lot of depth, and since they've been rotating more, they've been doing a lot better. That first game they didn't really rotate players as much as they wanted to. I don't know if they didn't think those guys were ready yet or what, but especially along the defensive line and the secondary, that's really helped. But also, I remember this defense coming out and struggling against Maryland's passing attack in that first game. So to me, I'm looking at the defense to see how much have you improved since that first game. How much is the secondary gelling? Because despite Spencer Rattler's struggles, he still has good numbers. He's still completing 70% of his passes, even though he's been forcing some things this year. But that Oklahoma offense, Lincoln Riley's going to design stuff up. He's going to have people open. And so I think this is a big test for the West Virginia defense to see how legit and how good they are against this Oklahoma team. If they come out and, hold Oklahoma under like 250 yards passing or something like that, then I'm like, okay, this pass defense is for real. So I think for me, it's really a barometer for this defense and specifically the secondary. But what are y'all's thoughts on the matchup between the West Virginia defense and this Oklahoma offense? What are you thinking, Stephen?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Spencer Rattler is fifth in the country in completion rating right now, so he hasn't been that horrible. I think I just hold him to the standards of a normal Oklahoma quarterback, I guess.
Right.
But he hasn't played to that level. But he hasn't been horrible. But I do think that West Virginia's secondary is going to have a time with him, especially Sean Mahone. He has looked like he's been able. Sean Mahone plays well at times, but there has been more than a few times already this season that I've noticed, he's got exploited on that backside
Yep.
of the defense. And I think, we've seen it in the first game against Maryland with Raheem Jarrett breaking loose with that one touchdown. I've seen it once or twice last weekend, and they got lucky in West Virginia, was able to get pressure on Braxton Burmeister, and he wasn't able to get the ball off in time. But if Oklahoma is a little bit better at blocking on the offensive line, which they usually are, then that's going to give Spencer Rattler a little bit more time. And like you said, they're going to have to cover receivers on that back end if they're going to at least tone down the big playability that Oklahoma's famous for. So that is probably one of the biggest things in my mind for this defense to be able to hold is obviously those receivers in that secondary. But I think our defensive line will also be able to get pressure with all those guys rotating in and out and all these new guys starting to get playing time. I think that was one of the greatest things about Jared Bartlett having his coming out party last week was, now you're seeing we don't only have Dante, we don't only have Akeem, we got guys that can show up when those guys are being double teamed or being forced into situations that they're not going to be able to have an impact that they would like. So that is one of my favorite things about last weekend. Um, I don't know, man. I think as we move forward, this secondary is going to find themselves, and they're going to be able to rotate their own guys in and out of there. I think the one guy that I want to see a little bit more is your guy, is Darryl Porter Jr. Because ever since that dropped interception last week, I'm like, come on, man, I
We
got
need
to
we
see
need a
something out
pick.
of you.
We need a pick. It'd be
Yeah,
big
we
in this
we
game.
need.
Yeah, and I mean,
That's the one thing I'll give against this defense, man. I want to see some more turnovers. I want to. I can't tell you how many times last week I was like, all right, we need a pick six or we need a pick here or something, and they just,
yeah, and that's something Neil Brown talked about is just the fact that like his defense isn't getting enough turnovers, and like that's
oh
just
yeah,
if that's something we definitely got to improve upon if we are wanting to win these big games.
No, absolutely,
no
I
doubt.
agree. He said that recovering fumbles, they've been jumping right on it. They need to go like more to the side and try and scoop that ball up because I think he said they've had 3 or 4 that they haven't recovered. He said, they finally got the one against Virginia Tech, but they've had opportunities at others. And yeah, I agree. The defense has been doing great, rotating guys in and out. And Jared Bartlett, Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week. I wanted to mention that, well earned. But yeah, it's going to be a
Mhm.
test right against this Oklahoma offense for sure. And hopefully the pass rush is there because if you give them guys too much time, somebody's going to get open. And like you said, I've seen some mishaps from Mahone as well. I think he's one of the, according to the PFF ratings, he's one of the lower rated defenders that we've been playing this year. And I think that's why you've seen more Jackie Matthews playing at that cat safety. And they've been putting Jackie Matthews all over the field, cat, spear, corner, nickel, wherever he's been playing all over. But I think they've been trying to find ways to get him in. And I think you need to rotate Kerry Martin in there some with Sean Mahone wouldn't be a bad idea either. I haven't seen too much of him yet this year. So if a guy's struggling, maybe help him out a little bit. But I'm sure that the coaches realize that he's struggling too, and maybe they'll scheme up some things to, try and keep that away and put it more toward, Alonzo Adai there and, center field at the free safety rather than that cat that Mahomes playing. And A little bit more Jackie Matthews, I think, would help there as well. But big test coming up against this Oklahoma offense for this West Virginia defense. What's your thoughts on that matchup, Bradley?
Yeah, and so something I was looking into because you guys covered, Spencer Rattler pretty good. Something I was looking into is Oklahoma's run game has not been that strong. They have two running backs right now that I think are sitting at uh, like around. I actually looked at it and it was kind of funny because in the Big 12 rushing leaders right now, they're quite a bit down there. They're like 13th and 15th, and right in between them is Garrett Green for
Oh
total
wow.
rushing yards on the season, which I think is kind of funny. Um, so I don't think that that's going to be. I think if we can definitely get that shut down and make them one dimensional, then really force Spencer Rattler to beat us. Which I mean, he definitely has the capability to. And I think I came out and I was talking on Facebook with some people during the Maryland game, and I said, I just don't believe that Tolia and his wide receivers can carry a game. I was just like, I just don't think they can go out there and win the games by themselves. And I was absolutely wrong about that. So I'm not going to make the same statement saying that Spencer Rattler can't come out and beat us just by himself with his wide receiver core because they're definitely capable of doing so. What does make me feel good, though, a little bit more confident, is the fact that last week I really talked about how going into the Virginia Tech game, I really wanted to see improvement in the communication in the backfield back there with all those defensive backs. I said, because we really lacked against Maryland. I said that was one of our biggest downfalls in Maryland was just a lack of communication and not being where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. And, we saw improvement against LIU, and we really didn't see too many blown coverages against Virginia Tech. I mean, I can't even think of too many off the top of my head that we really just let them go. I mean, they had a swing pass out there that got their second touchdown. I think it was their second touchdown. And, that's not necessarily a blown coverage as much as it was sitting back in zone and you just got beat. You got the pass underneath and they got blockers out there and they were able to make a play out of it rather than, just getting beat in coverage. So I think we've definitely improved in that aspect. So I really think that our defensive backs are going to improve game after game because that's what we've seen so far is that they've gotten better and better on that communication. And as they do so, they're playing better and better ball. So I think that's really encouraging when it comes to, that's going to be the pretty much the tell of the game is can Spencer Rattler beat our coverage? And I mean, I think it's eventually going to come down to, what Steven was talking about last week against Virginia Tech. I think it's going to be those big plays because if you miss one or two assignments, I mean, what Neil Brown has said, our margin for error is so small. If we miss one or two assignments on that defensive backfield this weekend, that could cost us the game. So I think that that's really going to be the matchup, like what you guys have been talking about, because I just don't think the run game is going to be there. And, if our defensive backs can keep their communication up and give our defensive line just some time to get some pressure, then I could definitely see us making some waves. I think that's our best chance this weekend is if we can get that pressure and have good communication.
I could see Oklahoma also running a little bit of those screen plays like Virginia Tech did last week
Yeah.
because
Which
that was
worked against
honestly,
us.
yeah, that was honestly one of the few things that their offense could do to get the ball rolling against West Virginia's defense. Was start to run a little bit of those halfback screens out of the backfield, and it started. They did have some success from it against our defense. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Oklahoma do a little bit of that too.
Yeah, I think that um, I'm not too worried about West Virginia's defense against Oklahoma's offense. Like I said, this could be a game where they come out and do some things, but I think that West Virginia's defense has proven they can hold their own against almost anybody. We saw that last season. And I think that if you look back at last season, the game was postponed and then ended up being canceled. But all week, all you heard was the coaches were very confident in that plan. And, the fact that they never got to play that game, I was listening to Jared Parker's interview today, and he said, they can kind of use that plan as a springboard to this year, based off what Oklahoma has done, in the past and things like that. And so I think that'll be helpful. And I think that West Virginia's defense is going to do enough to keep you in the game. That's why I say I'm not worried about West Virginia's defense in the fact that I know Oklahoma's going to make plays, but I'm not worried about to the fact that I don't think that they're going to blow us out because I think West Virginia's defense has shown that they always keep us in the game. What I'm more worried about is the other matchup I want to talk about, West Virginia's offense versus the Oklahoma defense. I said before that I think this is the best Oklahoma defense in quite some time. And I think for West Virginia to win this game, they have to keep it in the 20s. So you really need to rely on that defense. I think if this game gets into the 30s or higher, West Virginia's in trouble because I don't know if West Virginia's offense can score with Oklahoma if Oklahoma gets rolling. So you really need that defense to keep you in the game, which I'm confident about. But the West Virginia offense is what I'm worried about matching up against this Oklahoma defense. That being said, what are your thoughts on that side of the ball, Bradley?
Yeah, so what I'm looking at going through these, I was just like looking at the stats so far through the first three games. So right now, the number one team in sacks, uh, it, getting the most sacks of the season so far has been Oklahoma's defense. And you turn around, you look at the other side of the ball, and what team has given up the most sacks this year? It's WVU. And so that's really going to be a tough job, especially when you've got, uh, a not very strong, confident offense right now. You start getting sacks and stuff like that. Jarrett Dagey can have some of those big mistakes and stuff, and that could really cost us. And I mean, it's a really scary thought. And then my only other thought, other than the defensive line, because I think that's where the battle's going to be: their defensive line versus our offensive line. Can we, keep that improvement that we saw against Virginia Tech a little bit, and get even better protection? It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough ask for our offensive line. Um, and then after that, second half adjustments. We've seen that we have no offense in the second half, and we can't continue to do that if we want to win any kind of semblance of a big game like this. I mean, it works against Virginia Tech because you got home field advantage and our defense really showed up. That's not always going to be able to happen. I mean, you can't expect your defense to come in there and, bow their back every single time that Virginia Tech gets on our side of the field. And so if we want to win some of these bigger games and continue to make ourselves a more consistent force in the Big 12, we got to start scoring in the second half.
Absolutely. Steven, what are your thoughts on the West Virginia offense going up against this Oklahoma defense?
I'm a little like you, Bradley. I'm a little scared to see how our offensive line holds up against the defensive line because we have given up a large amount of sacks this year, and that defensive line for Oklahoma looks very stout as usual. But I do think the West Virginia's line came to play last week and came together a little bit more than they have. And I think I've mentioned it. I think getting Mike O'Loughlin's really big. Getting him back on that right side is very, very big for the kind of run schemes that we want to run and things like that. Doug Nestor getting the glove off of his hand was really big. It helps him get up and get some leverage underneath some guys. I think as we move forward, this offensive line, we have talent on the offensive line. We've talked about it a bunch. I just think that they need time to get chemistry between them and know, you know, how to play with each other. It's one thing to have talent; it's another thing to be able to gel with your teammates. And I think that last week you started to see West Virginia's run game come together a lot more than it has been in the previous two games prior to that. So I think that we're going to only continue to get better on our offensive front, and our receivers also looked better last week. So they're showing me hope. I think West Virginia needs to go for more of those over the middle passes instead of trying to go deep a lot, because that's when West Virginia starts to, if once we start to go deep and throw that deep pass, we start to stutter step, because then the Oklahoma defense, or any defense for that matter, is going to start to say, okay, well now they're going to, it starts to just get more predictable. I feel like in the play calling, once you get a play, you try to go for a big play and it doesn't work, then you become predictable. So I think West Virginia is just getting better offensively. We're gonna have to block all day. You're not gonna be able to get you're not gonna be able to let this guy come through. Every other play, or this guy come through every other play. You've seen it a little bit with Tech, and they got into the backfield a few times on West Virginia. But for the most part, West Virginia was able to overpower their defensive line, and we got a pretty good push. That's why you've seen Letty go for how many yards on the second play of the ball game for our offense. So if we play like that along the offensive front, we're going to be in a good position to win the football game on Saturday, because, like you said, our defense will put us in position to win the game. It's just whether our offense is going to play to the level to have us, are we going to have momentum going into the fourth quarter, or are we going to be complacent like we have been? I think I'm like you. If it goes up into the 30s, West Virginia's in trouble. If West Virginia keeps it down in the 20s and teens, then we might have a good shot to win.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Like I said, with the West Virginia defense, it's, I think a big barometer for the secondary. I think, as you guys said, it's a big barometer for the offensive line in this game, because you showed against Virginia Tech the improvement, Mike O'Loughlin back, Doug Nestor without the club, maybe finally starting to gel after playing together, for 3 games now. And that first run, showed you that hole was huge, and run blocking was really great all day. And one of the best pass protection games I've seen as well. I think Daggy was only sacked once or twice. So, that was good. You need to continue that. And I think this is a great test for that, because, as Bradley said, Oklahoma leads the, nation in sacks in the conference, whichever it was. But either way, this is a team that can get to the quarterback and got some great players on that defense. So
it's important to also know who Oklahoma has played to get those numbers as well.
That's true. You got a good point there. But, West Virginia going to have to protect the passer in this one. And more importantly, going to have to continue the good run blocking, because I heard a stat today, and this is very interesting. I didn't know this, but I think it's the big key now is Neil Brown's team since he came to West Virginia. 9-0 when the team rushes for over 100 yards. 9-0. So they went over 100 against Virginia Tech, got another win. So West Virginia goes for over 100. Seems like they got a good chance.
Yeah. Also, another interesting fact: our top-rated lineman so far this season has been Zach Frazier. That sophomore up front from West Virginia.
Absolutely.
He's been grading out in the upper 90s every single time, and that's super impressive, especially coming from your center, the guy that you really want grading high because that means he's reading defense as well. That's like super impressive. So shout out to Zach Frazier for really like.
I don't think we've had those kind of numbers for a center at least since Dan Moses.
I was about to say Dan Moses maybe. Tyler Orlowski was pretty good those couple years, but yeah.
Not since I have been a fan of. I even think of one. And that was my position in high school.
He's the guy.
Dan Moses really spoiled us, I think, because in those times I don't think West Virginia was under the impression that we could have a bad offensive lineman with the way those teams were playing.
Well, when you got a good center, it helps the whole offensive line.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to the West Virginia boys really holding it down. I mean, we got 3 West Virginia boys that are all 4-star recruits on that offensive line, and you love to see it because that I can't help but think that helps improve communication because, I mean, you're talking
shout
about
out to them, but shout out to Neil Brown for recruiting homegrown talent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Getting them home, too.
How long have we been griping to get these homegrown guys that, they're finally coming to West Virginia, and we're seeing how lucrative it's been for us. That's awesome.
Imagine how impressive it would have been if Darnell Wright wasn't a freaking punk and would have actually came home.
Oh, he played us with that one. But no, that's one thing I did notice.
I hope we get to play Tennessee soon.
We do. I know we played. When was it? I don't know if he'll still be there. He'll probably be gone. And then was it 2025 or 2024 or something like that?
Yeah, he'll probably be gone.
Yeah, but that's one thing I noticed.
Shout out to Zach Frazier. That's NFL talent right there. I mean, that's impressive. I mean, that's going to be – he'll be playing on Sundays for sure.
You got 3 out of the 5 offensive linemen that are playing a lot was West Virginia guys, like you said, because that's one thing I noticed upon rewatching the game is Wyatt Milam. I think Parker Moore got the technical start, but Wyatt Milam played more than Parker Moore on that right tackle spot for I think that's the first time all season because Wyatt Milam, I think we all mentioned against Maryland, he had his struggles and stuff, but maybe he's really starting to, come along now as well too, and that'll be big. Like I said, just the more that offensive line starts to gel, I think they're only going to get better as the year goes along, and this is a big test for them. So talked a little bit about the matchups. Let's talk key to victory now. What are you guys thinking? What does West Virginia need to do, the key to come away with a huge upset win and get 3 straight wins for the first time since Neil Brown took over as head coach? What's your key to victory, Stephen?
I think you touched on it a little bit earlier. I'm actually going to go opposite of what I've been saying in the past. And I've been saying that West Virginia needs to get over that 30-point mark and really show what our offensive firepower can do. But I'm on the other side of the fence in this game. I think if West Virginia is able to hold it under 30 points, West Virginia will have both teams, then West Virginia is going to have a really strong chance to win the football game because I feel like if you make it an offensive battle, West Virginia is not going to be able to keep up. But if you make it a defensive battle, which is what I believe that it will be, then West Virginia is going to have a really strong chance to stay in the football game and possibly win it this year. And yeah, I'm really excited for this matchup. This is, I think, the most. I think the guy on our reaction show touched on it the other day. I think this is the most winnable game against an Oklahoma team since at least joining the Big 12 conference in my mind.
Yeah, one of the first times you've got them early, in the season, and that's when you've kind of had your closer games with them is getting them earlier in the season. And then, the past couple of years they've shown, lose that they've lost, their first, second, or third Big 12 game they've played. So, great chance, absolutely. But primetime in Norman, I think that kind of goes against you a little bit, but we'll see how that goes. But for me, my key to victory, I'm going to say, is just quarterback play. I think it's the play of this offense. I think if the quarterback play is good, I think the offense can maybe score that 30 points that I think they'll need to win this game. Like we said, I think before, only 4 times, and I think it was like 21 games, Neil Brown against the Power 5 has scored over 30. I think to get this win, you're going to have to do that again. West Virginia's defense may keep them under 30, but they're probably going to get close to 30 at least. So I think you need to score 30 again, and I think West Virginia's offensive line is starting to gel. I think Letty's a stud. I think our wide receivers have been consistently beating people. That's what's impressed me. So for me, it's the quarterback play. If you can hit those passes when those guys are open, if you can get West Virginia in the right play, whether it's Garrett Green coming in and making some sparks with his packages when he gets in there, or Daggy really having his best game as a Mountaineer, West Virginia's going to need some good quarterback play to win this one against Oklahoma. So that's my key to victory because I think you're going to need to score 30 in this one. Bradley, what about you? What's your key to victory?
So opposite of mine.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, my key to this victory is going to be, and I brought it up. I think it's going to be second half offense. I think if we come out and we don't make score more than a field goal in the second half, I don't think there's any shot we win this game. I just don't see it happen. I think you got to come out. We got to come out strong. I mean, I could see us, Neil Brown scripted plays like we talk usually go pretty well in the first half, but he needs to come out and make some plays in the second half. We can't if we come out and have a stagnant offense. There's no way that Oklahoma doesn't build momentum and run us out of that house. So if we don't come out and get some scores in the second half, then I don't think we're going to come away with that win. So, and because I think your defense just gets worn out if you're not moving the ball, if you're not getting progress, and then I think that's when it turns into a 30-point plus game is when we start letting up a couple touchdowns in the second half, and that's where we lose it at. So I think we got to be able to have a strong offensive performance in the second half. No matter what happens in the first half, I think we got to come out in the second half and be able to put points on the board if we want to win this game.
Great point. Really need to turn that second half offense around. We've talked about that and the struggles in the Neil Brown era of second half offense and scoring in general, really, but specifically second half has been pretty bad, and we saw that last week again. Rear its ugly head. So hopefully, this is a game where they keep their foot on the pedal and make some plays in the second half, whether they have a lead at halftime or need to come back, what have you. Hopefully, they come out in the second half just as explosive as they start the game. That would be a big key, I think. So we've talked the matchups. We've talked key to victory. We're going to get down to predictions. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys that Sunday evenings following the West Virginia game, you can check out our live stream. So do that for this Oklahoma game if you'd like. That way you can chime in, comment with us, get some more interaction with you guys in Mountaineer Nation. That's always great. So live stream will be on our Facebook and on our YouTube Sunday evening at some point. We'll let you know ahead of time on our social media when it is. And you can follow that on Twitter at WVU Country Roads. Got the live tweets going during the game. And then of course, subscribe to us on YouTube and like us on Facebook and any podcast platform. You can find us on there. Just search Country Roads Webcast. We're all over Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. So I just want to do a quick little podcast business there. And you guys definitely need to check out that live stream. It's good and a lot of fun. And we'll have that up after this Oklahoma game. But hopefully, let's see what we think what kind of mood we'll be in for that live stream, as we all three are going to give our score predictions now for this Oklahoma game as West Virginia heads into Norman to take on a top 5 Oklahoma team looking for their third straight win and their second straight win over a ranked team. What do you think is going to happen, Bradley?
So I think I I'm man, it's so tough. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a defensive game. I think that we're going to have the ball in the end with a chance to win, but I think we're going to come up a little short. I think that Oklahoma is going to hit that 30-point mark, and I think that we're going to get it close, but I'm going to say it's going to be 24-31.
I like it. I mean, that's within a touchdown, and I'd be happy with West Virginia, keeping it close because I'll go ahead and throw my prediction out. I think that I said my fear, at the beginning is Oklahoma has looked beatable, but, West Virginia's luck, they'll come out and look like world beaters. And I think that maybe you'll see Spencer Rattler have his best game of the year. I think that they've got him in a spot in prime time where he can thrust himself back into the Heisman conversation and stuff like that. This is going to be a great showcase for him, opportunity wise, anyways. I think West Virginia's defense has a chance, but this is going to be a big test for them. I think Oklahoma's still going to be able to find some ways to score. I think the home field advantage is going to play big. And as I said, West Virginia's offense, I don't know if they can score with this Oklahoma team. So as bad as I hate to do it, I got Oklahoma 38-21. Steven, what do you got?
All right. Well, I've been waiting to give this one. So as I've said, that Oklahoma has played very suspect up to this point of the season. We've touched on it. They always lose at least one game in the beginning of the Big 12 schedule, it seems like, and they always have a game where they play. They come out and play flat. They came out and played flat against Tulane. They played against Nebraska, and they were flat. And you can make the argument that Nebraska had a pretty good football team. I'm not under that impression. I think Scott Frost is running that program into the ground up there, and I don't think that they're on the way up at all. So to be in a game to where you have the possibility to lose that game in Norman, I think that screams that you're not playing to the level that you're wanting to or usually do play at. I think on the flip side, West Virginia's coming off a very high emotion win. They're finding themselves and playing better throughout the weeks. I truly believe this is the year that West Virginia takes it home. I really do think West Virginia is going to go out to Norman and play at a very high level. I think this is going to be the game that turns Neil Brown's career around and gets West Virginia, on the right direction moving forward in the coming seasons. With that being said, I think West Virginia goes out there and they win at 34-20. I
Wow.
think we win by 2
Wow.
touchdowns. Yeah, I know that. I
Sheesh.
know.
Oh,
But I don't think
bold.
West Virginia. The reason I say that is because this is why I don't think West Virginia is going to be able to hold on into a close game. I think our defense is going to have to hold their offense in a similar fashion as the way that we did the Virginia Tech offense this past weekend. And West Virginia's offense jumps out to a little bit of a lead by a couple touchdowns, and then you start to see a little bit of a resurgence from the Oklahoma offense. And I know it sounds like I'm a dreamer right now, and I'm just talking out the side of my neck, but I'm telling you what I've seen out of the Oklahoma offense and their defense versus what I've seen out of West Virginia in the first 3 games. And what I've seen is West Virginia's been tested. They've been tested from good football teams that have shown quality football in the first 2 or 3 weeks. However, Oklahoma has not shown me that. They've played bad football teams and still played bad football. And so I think West Virginia is a little bit more – they come into the game with a little bit more I don't want to just stay on repeat, but they come in more tested than Oklahoma does at this point in the season. And I don't know. I've got a really good feeling. I had a really good feeling about last week. I'm going to leave these blue and gold glasses on until
No.
until
I
Monday morning at least.
No, I mean I understand where you're coming
So
from because like gold and blue glasses on, I can see it through that view. But the way that I'm looking at it is West Virginia better than Nebraska?
is on the history side.
Is West Virginia
Oh
better
yeah,
than
Yeah,
we're better
Tulane?
than
I,
Nebraska.
absolutely.
I
For
don't
sure.
I don't know
For sure,
I
better
don't know
Absolutely.
that
than
we are.
Nebraska.
I don't know that we are.
Absolutely.
I don't know what
I
I don't
know that
know.
we are.
I don't
I
know
know
that
that
That's
we
we
are.
are. If you
insulting,
look at the
Chris.
talent on those
I
sides
know
of the
you're
ball,
being
I know that they are.
pessimistic, but you don't got to be downright awful.
I mean, I'm just saying. I don't know for a fact that we are. Like Nebraska has been a mixed bag. They looked really bad early, but then they hung with Oklahoma and head to head, West Virginia and Nebraska. I
But
think that's
that's the
probably an
thing.
even
Like, what
matchup
Did
does
they
this
hang with
year.
Oklahoma
Oklahoma,
have
or
that
did
makes you
Oklahoma
feel like there's
side go
that?
to Nebraska?
Other than the fact that they've won these games, what makes you think Oklahoma's so great of a football team? That's my thing. They haven't
That they
done
should
the
be. They should be that great of a
right
football
because
team.
they are every year, but
On
they haven't
paper,
done
yeah.
something this year to show you that they are that football team. West Virginia comes out against a Virginia Tech team that does make a resurgence late in the football game. You are tested late in the game, and you still have multiple goal line stands. Your defense is tested in that facet. Okay, flip over to Maryland in week 1. You know what that loss feel like. You know what going into into a raucous environment, if you could say that. West Virginia was pretty much having a home game up there in College Park, but you know what going into an away game, playing down on the road feels like. West Virginia, I just feel like with the things that we have on our side going into this matchup, being an early season matchup versus late in the season, because West Virginia with Paul Millard went out to Norman, Oklahoma, and almost won that game.
That's true.
So,
That's the last time you
and
played
that
them
was the last
early.
time they played in this type of a football
And it
game,
was a
early
night
in the
game.
season, a
Yeah, it was
night
a night
game.
game. Hmm.
Right, right.
Yeah,
So
you do have a
I
point.
don't know. I think that the Cards are more in favor of West Virginia than they ever have been since joining the Big 12, in my opinion.
Well, despite what I'm saying here, I
See,
do
I see
feel
a
more
shit.
confident
Yeah.
than like I have in years past. I think Neil Brown and them have shown good ways to game plan and stuff. So despite what I'm saying, I do have some hope. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just trying to keep it realistic and I guess not get my hopes up more so than
No,
anything.
I
But
know.
But like I said, I don't know that West Virginia, and Nebraska. I feel like that they're probably pretty evenly matched if they were head to head, this season. And that Tulane team that Oklahoma played, I think Tulane can score better than West Virginia. Do I think West Virginia is better and has more talent than Tulane? Absolutely, but West Virginia hasn't shown the ability to score like that because Tulane was down and then came back and put almost 40 points on Oklahoma. And I don't know if West Virginia gets down like that if they have the offense to come back and score like that. So that's why I say is West Virginia bet just any better than those two teams. And like you said, Oklahoma hasn't looked great, but have they not looked great because they're not good, or is it just a matter of time? Because usually the answer is it's just a matter of time, and I'm just fearing that that time is coming Saturday.
And see, I'd be more on board with Steven, but I just can't. I see us being ahead in the first half. I do. I see us being up at least like 17-14. 17-10. I see us being up at halftime, but I just don't see I think our offense is going to come out and maybe score one touchdown in the second half because they haven't proven that they can come out and do it. I guess that's why I made it my key to victory. If they can come out and score in the second half, then I could definitely see them, putting up the 2 touchdown lead, like Steven said. Because if our offense gets rolling, then our defense is going to be, our defense, and then we could definitely hold them to that 34-20 score. But until they can prove that they can come out and score in that second half, I just can't do it.
Well, that's the
I'm with
thing. I
Jordan
think this
then,
is the game that they do prove that because, like I've said before, up until this season, West Virginia has been a second half football team. So I'm not going to necessarily be so. I've touched on it a lot how West Virginia has yet to score in the second half this season, other than the Long Island game. But prior to that, I feel like West Virginia has been a second half football team and an on the road football team for that matter. So I think West Virginia, we don't have a lot of sample size to go with, with Maryland and Virginia. That's 2 games. I mean, that's quite a bit of sample size, but it's not a great sample size. So I don't want to, just act like West Virginia is totally incapable of scoring the football in the second half because we know we can. I think our biggest problem is that we get too conservative in the second half, and I think we're going to continue to build upon that moving forward. I know that our coaches know that, and I don't know. I have full confidence that Neil Brown knows what he's doing. I'm not one of the fans that is totally against him.
Right.
Doing what he's got to do to progress the team in the right way. And I do. I feel like right now the West Virginia's got a lot of things moving in the right direction, especially after you had, a week as bad as you had in week 1 against Maryland. West Virginia's got the ball rolling right now, and they look like a really good football team if you get some of those minor details fixed.
And do you think we're going to see more or less Garrett Green this week? I don't think we're going to see any less Garrett Green this weekend
More.
than what we saw last weekend.
I was going to say more.
Do you think
yeah.
we're going to see?
I think.
I
think.
is it going to be?
He's
I
going
don't.
to
You won't
throw.
see him start this year. I don't.
He's going
I
to
don't think
throw
you'll
the
see
ball.
that.
I'm not going. Yeah, he's not going to start. I don't think he's going to
But
start.
I
at all
do
this
think
year.
as the games go on, you'll see him get more and more packages in there because they're going to feel more comfortable of what they're trying to do with the offense and what they can run with him versus what they can do with Jared Decky in there, and plus what you can do with guys around them while one of the others in the football game. So. Yeah, I think this will be one of the main games that you can test what you can do with them because you're going to be seeing a good defense and you can know what you'll be able to run and what you can't.
And I think anything short of or anything other than a blowout, I think Mountaineer fans are going to be okay. I don't think we're going to see calls for Neil Brown's head after this game
Right.
if you lose it by 2 touchdowns.
No,
But
yeah.
I think people are still going to be mad if we just don't have second half offense. I'm going to keep beating that. I'm sorry. It's just.
No, that's true. The offense needs to come out this game and do something.
I will be. I'll be mad if we don't. If we don't, I'll tell you. If we don't score a second half touchdown in this game, I'll be upset. I will.
Yeah, if we don't score a second half touchdown in this game, then I'm gonna start calling for an offensive coordinator. I think that we need to stop letting Neil Brown call the plays and let somebody else come in that's willing to get spicy in the second half and let some things fly.
Yeah, I think so. Or you're gonna have to make some adjustments there if that continues for the rest of the season, especially in the off season, somebody may end up being a scapegoat and having to get the boot or something. But yeah, something definitely gonna have to change there, especially with that second half offense. And I think, like you guys said, I think we'll see more Garrett Green, but I also think we'll see some things that Neil Brown and Jared Parker have up their sleeves that we haven't shown yet, and kind of some interesting ways to get the ball to our playmakers. Probably some different stuff for Letty we haven't seen, some different stuff for Winston Wright we haven't seen as well. And I think that they've probably got some stuff up their sleeve for Oklahoma because this is a game where you want to pull out all the stops. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see some trickeration or something like that. That being said,
I'm hoping so too.
Yeah, I know it's we need it. You've never beat this team, so come out, give it all you got, and let the chips fall where they may. But that being said, We've talked matchups, we've talked prediction, X factor. Let's give some final thoughts before we get out of here, gentlemen. Can be about this game or anything you want really. Soapbox is yours. So final thoughts. What do you got for this week, Bradley?
I feel like I've laid it all out there. I've gotten it all off my chest. I got a lot of expectations for this weekend. I'm excited to be playing a night game in Norman and see how our team shows up. As long as they build on the momentum and we don't get shut out, I'll be a happy camper this weekend.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I apologize to Mountaineer Nation for being so pessimistic all the time. But hey, I'm just trying to not get my hopes up and let myself down. And trying to do this without my gold and blue glasses on, I guess, and be a little bit more of a realist because I've always, had the high hopes and stuff, I guess. So I'm looking at it a little differently, I guess. Maybe I'm just getting old and grouchy. I don't know, but that's my final thought, really. Steven,
Oh
what
yeah,
about
one
you?
last thing
Oh,
before
yeah,
we
go
jump
ahead.
over.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I miscut you. Shout out to the Country Roads webcast fans. So we've definitely been growing a lot this year. So we've been keeping up a
Absolutely.
consistent schedule. We appreciate all the support that we've been getting. So a lot of people have been getting engaged and stuff like that. We've had a lot of fan love. So I shout out to that because I've been really appreciating that.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
year.
Absolutely. Definitely
Yeah,
all four
absolutely. Just
Mountaineer
continue to
Nation
grow from here. We really appreciate you guys.
for sure. That being
What I
said,
was
go
going to
ahead.
touch on, I was going to say, what I was going to touch on was I'm hoping to see, and it doesn't look like we're going to see any team be afraid to kick the ball to Winston Wright. So I'm hoping to see a little bit out of him this weekend, and I want him to take one to the house, set the tone against Oklahoma. I think if we come out and we play some pretty good special teams, I think that will set the tone more so than anything our defense will do or anything our offense will do all day. I think our special teams is really going to come out.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, got to win the
Yeah, because
special
our punt
teams.
game could
Than
be very
Oklahoma special
important.
teams has been.
Yeah. You've
Yeah,
seen an
'cause our
emphasis
punt
on
game
special teams by
could be.
Neil, and I think that's big if they come out and do the thing.
Two
Got
blocked
to win
field
that.
goals already this year, and how you get the touchdown against LIU from Winston Wright, and then you get however many return yards in the Maryland game. Special teams come to play this year, man. I love it.
Absolutely, it's the hidden factor, and Neil Brown, as we've talked about, he's a highly detailed guy and takes everything into account. So he knows if he wins special teams, that gives him a great chance to win the game overall. So he's put a big emphasis on that, and I think it's paying off.
Absolutely.
For sure.
All right, so I guess that'll wrap it up for the Oklahoma preview this week. Like I said, join us on Sunday for our live stream reaction. Of course, we'll flip that into a podcast episode and have the audio here as well for y'all that like audio only. Just find us on any podcast platform you choose. Search Country Roads Webcast, and of course, the video version up on our Facebook and on our YouTube as well. Subscribe to that if you haven't already. So continue to try and grow the video side of this, unveiling that here in season 4 and going with some things with video and not just being audio only anymore. So got that going, so check that out. And then, as always, follow us on social media, Facebook, and then on Twitter at WVU Country Roads. We'll live tweet during the game, so follow us there. It's a great place, a lot of fun during WVU game days, and hopefully it's a good one this Saturday against Oklahoma. But that being said, until next time, as always, I'm your host, Jordan Cruz, and for Steven and Bradley, until next time, let's go Mountaineers.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those